You know the moment, we've all been there. You're staring into the fridge, you're holding something in your hand, and it's a day or two past the date on the package. It's this little moment of indecision that happens in kitchens every single day. But what if I told you that, for years, most of us have been reading those labels completely wrong?
Right? This is the classic kitchen dilemma. You've got that yogurt, it looks fine, it smells fine, but that little date staring you down. Your decision in this exact moment, well, it's at the very heart of a massive, nationwide confusion.
And here it is, the single most important thing you need to know. Those dates, they are not federal safety deadlines. They are put there voluntarily by the manufacturers. Think of it as a quality suggestion, not a safety command. Well, with one very specific exception.
That one exception is infant formula. And this is really interesting. It's not just about bacteria, it's about nutrition. For an infant, formula is often their only source of food. So that date guarantees that all the vitamins and nutrients are still at full strength. So when it comes to this one product, that date is an absolute hard and fast rule.
Okay, so if the government isn't setting these dates for pretty much everything else, who is? And why on earth are they so baffling? Well, it turns out we've basically been eavesdropping on a conversation that was never even meant for us.
Let's start with the biggest culprit, sell-by. This date is literally a note from the food maker to the grocer. It's just a reminder for them to rotate their stock. It's got a huge buffer built in for you to take it home and eat it. It was never ever intended to be a deadline for you, the consumer.
Now, best if used by is probably the one you see the most. All this means is the manufacturer is saying, hey, we guarantee our cookies will have the perfect snap until this date. After that, they might be a little less snappy, but they're almost certainly not unsafe. It is purely about quality.
And then there's use by. This one's the trickiest of the bunch. Sometimes it's still just about quality, like on a jar of mustard. But, and this is important, especially on highly perishable foods like deli meats, it's now being used as a real safety marker. So the key here is the meaning totally depends on the food it's printed on.
So let's just lay this all out in one place. Think of this as your new decoder ring for the grocery aisle. Sell by is for the store, not you. Best by is just a hint about peak quality, and use by is the one you really need to pay attention to, especially for those high-risk foods. See? It's starting to make a little more sense now. To really get this, we have to go a little deeper and understand the microscopic battle that's happening in our food. And it turns out there are two completely different kinds of bad guys at play here.
Okay, so on one side, you've got spoilage bacteria. These are the guys that make your milk go sour or your bread get moldy. The thing is, they give you really clear signals, bad smells, weird textures, you know it when you see it. But on the other side are pathogens, things like salmonella. These are the silent threats. They don't change how food looks, smells, or tastes at all, but they are absolutely what cause food poisoning.
And this right here is the absolute core scientific truth you need to remember. Your nose is fantastic at telling you if your yogurt's quality has gone down, but it is completely 100% powerless to detect dangerous bacteria on, say, a piece of raw chicken. Relying on the sniff test for safety is a huge gamble.
So why are those use-by dates on ready-to-eat foods like deli meats so important? Well, it comes down to this one nasty pathogen called Listeria. And what makes Listeria so special is that it can actually grow at cold refrigerator temperatures. Since you don't cook deli meats, that use-by date is a critical safety control to limit the time it has to grow. So, this gap between what the labels actually mean and what we think they mean, it isn't just a little kitchen problem. It has staggering consequences on a national scale. 3 billion pounds. That is how much perfectly good, perfectly safe-to-eat food gets thrown away every single year in the US, just because we misunderstand these little dates. It's an almost unimaginable amount of waste.
And look at how common this is. A whopping 88% of us admit to tossing food based on the date label at least some of the time. And for nearly half of us, it's a regular habit. We have literally been trained to trust the date on the package over our own common sense.
And if you dig into the data, something fascinating pops out. There's a real generational divide. Younger folks, Gen Z and millennials, are way more likely to rely on the label than older generations. It kind of suggests that we might be losing a bit of that old-school food know-how, and instead we're treating these dates as absolute rules.
But the good news is, this chaos is not our destiny.
There's a really clear, common-sense solution on the horizon that everybody, industry leaders, consumer advocates, and even lawmakers are starting to rally behind.
And the solution is just beautifully simple. 2 labels, that's it. One for quality, best if used by, and one for safety, used by. It completely streamlines the message, and it finally separates those 2 crucial ideas, taste versus safety.
And hey, this isn't just some theory, it's actually happening. California has passed a landmark law, Assembly Bill 660, that mandates this 2-label system. And crucially, it bans those confusing sell-by dates from even appearing where consumers can see them. This is a total game changer.
You know, this change didn't just happen overnight. You can see the momentum has been building for years. It kicked off with a voluntary push from the food industry back in 2017, it got more steam with a federal bill, and now it's becoming law in the country's biggest market in 2026. Change is definitely coming.
So after all of this, what does it really mean for you and me in our own kitchens? How do we put this knowledge into practice like tonight?
Okay, here it is, your new toolkit. Best by is about quality, so trust your eyes, trust your nose. Use by is about safety, so you've got to respect that date on things like deli meat. And sell by, just completely ignore it. It was never for you anyway. And remember this, keeping your food at the right temperature is way more important for safety than any date printed on a package.
So the next time you pick up that carton of yogurt, you're now equipped to ask a much, much better question. Instead of just asking, is this expired? You can now ask yourself, am I dealing with a question of peak quality or am I dealing with a question of safety? And knowing the difference, well, that changes everything.